My name is Jackson the Nerdy Guy. After 8 years of watching Arrow, I have finished it with only one goal: to rank every season. But to do so, I can't be the nerd that I already am. To rank this show, I must become someone else. I must become something else. Greetings, nerds and nerdettes. You heard right. Today we are going to be ranking all 8 seasons of Arrow from the worst to the best. So before we begin, I'm not going to be judging every single season by how comic book accurate they are. I might touch on a few little details on specific seasons, but overall I'm just going to be judging every season by the quality. So with that said, let's get started talking about number 8. Yeah, you guys all knew this was coming. It's season 4. Aside from a handful of scenes and maybe a couple of episodes, and the fact that this suit was actually the best in the entire show, there was just nothing that I could give credit for in this season. The villain was lame. The motivations ranged from nonsensical or just flat out stupid. I mean, even the fighting choreography and the flashbacks were just boring this time around. And the death that happened in the season, which was teased from the very first episode of the season, I had no idea that they were going to kill off such an important character, not just in the comics, but they actually developed Black Canary as the series went along, but all of that just amounted to nothing. Nothing. And don't even get me started about Felicity. Everything has already been said. I cannot just add something new to the subject aside from she is a hypocrite and a moron, and I'll just leave it at that. So, next, number 7. Next we have season 6, which was equally as frustrating as season 4, but probably the most forgettable season, if I'm being honest. With the first half, we had Diggle taking on the mantle of the Green Arrow, which I thought was dumb. And then we had Oliver becoming a father, which I would not have minded that storyline at all if William was a more interesting character. But he wasn't. And then we had 2 villains in this season, Caden James and Ricardo Diaz. To me, both were just not really great villains, even though I thought Caden James was a little bit more developed than Ricardo Diaz, which is pretty weird because people really, really liked Ricardo Diaz. But to me, both characters were just not interesting, and both characters were just miscast. And the second half, I did find a little bit more interesting because of the consequences that led from Diggle becoming Green Arrow, and it led to the team dividing for a few episodes. And we also had Paul Blackthorne's Lance becoming a father figure to Black Siren, which was pretty interesting. But aside from that, there was just so much potential that this season had that was left off from season 5, which they just threw out the window. Alright, so next we have number 6. Next we have season 3, which, aside from the first episode having them kill off Sarah Lance for pretty much no reason, I always thought that his first half of the season was really enjoyable. It had this kind of mystery type of story that the first 2 seasons had, and we had our very first crossover with The Flash and Arrow, and Stephen Amell and Grant Gustin had such great chemistry together. We also had these few episodes right there in the middle where it had the whole team without Oliver to lead them, which I thought was really well done. And out of all the characters in this season, I always thought that Laurel had the best arc. She basically went from being nothing in the first season to being a drunk to being a bit of a hero in the second season. And then by the end of the third season, she becomes closer to her comic book counterpart. However, where I thought this season falls short was in the second half, where Oliver basically had no time to recover after being stabbed and then kicked off of a mountain. And then Roz basically puts him closer to the edge to becoming a member of the League of Assassins after trying to kill him. And I do get why Oliver didn't tell his team what his plan was. But the way he was going on about it just felt out of character. And it was so frustrating that all of that nonsense basically went in the season following. So, moving on to number 5. Up next, we have Season 7. And much like Season 3, I actually really liked the first half of this season. And the crossover in the middle, really enjoyed. But the second half, not so much. In the first half, we had Oliver in prison while the team was investigating this second Green Arrow that was going out there hunting bad guys. And it felt fresh at first. It was later revealed that the second Green Arrow was Oliver's half-sister, which shoved in way too much family drama, which just did not need to happen at all. And there were also these flashbacks that were happening, and they were either not important to the plot or were just not interesting. And I guess you could say the worst part about this season as a whole is that it was taking influence from this really great story called Green Arrow, The Longbow Hunters. But it didn't even keep to the same theme as the book. And I would have been a little bit more forgiving if they had just kept his comic book accurate beard. They had his comic book accurate beard! Next. Next is Season 8. Now, going into this one, I was pretty skeptical considering the last 2 seasons were less than stellar. I mean, it is the final season, for crying out loud. But aside from some needless family drama between Mia, William, and present-day Oliver, which is to be expected by now, and the last 2 episodes, which I'll get into in just a minute, I actually really liked this season. In fact, I really enjoyed myself. It had Oliver going through the multiverse and getting ready for the crisis. And he saw all these different possibilities had his life gone in this direction or that direction, which I thought was pretty cool. And I liked when he died and became the Spectre. I mean, true, it was an idea taken from the Green Lantern comics, not Green Arrow. But, again, I dig it. However, I was still waiting for the crap to come up. And as soon as Mia got engaged to this random bad guy in her bed, I was like, oh, there's the crap I was waiting for. I freaking knew you'd show up sooner or later. And most of all, here's what I don't get. You brought every single main character back for the final episode. And you didn't even make them the new Green Arrow. You made Mia the new Green Arrow. Someone who wasn't even introduced until season 7. Someone who wasn't even interesting. And you only made the Green Arrow just because she was Oliver's daughter. She didn't even earn it. I mean, you even got freaking Roy Harper back. A character who is actually from the comic books. If there was any one character that should have been the new leader, it should have been Roy. Not Mia, not William, not freaking Zoe. Although I did like the flashback portion of the final episode, that was really cool. At number 3 is going to be Season 1. Now, to this day, rewatching Season 1 and what they were able to accomplish on a TV show's budget back in the year 2012 just blew me away. From the acting, to the action, to the mystery storyline, and even the flashback scenes that were on the island, which were heavily inspired by the Green Arrow Year 1 storyline. All of that had complete relevance to what was going on in the present day. And I was so excited to see more of that so much that I just wanted a whole season with just him on the island. Now, a few people probably didn't like Stephen Amell as Green Arrow, or what they were doing with the character in terms of the tone, or how brutal he was, and that's okay. But for me personally, Stephen Amell will always be a great choice for Green Arrow in my book. And it did take me a while to understand what they were going for in terms of his arc throughout the show, but when they finally got around to it, it was just brilliant. Our runner-up is going to be Season 5. So after the colossal failure that was Season 4, Season 5 brought everything back to basics with a new team, an imposing villain, and an intriguing storyline that showed the consequences to Oliver's killing spree in Season 1. Now, even though I thought that the secret identity of the villain was predictable, Prometheus himself was a freaking beast of a villain, staying 2 steps ahead of Oliver and pushing him to the breaking point. Now, with the action scenes, it's subtle, but you could tell that it took inspiration from Netflix's Daredevil, which I didn't mind. And that will be a video for another day. And since this was the 5th season, it marked the end of the flashbacks and the 100th episode, both which I cried at, I'm not gonna lie. And even though Season 6 did undo every possibility that the ending of this season left off of, it did not take away any of my enjoyment for this one whatsoever. And our winner is going to be Season 2. So, when Season 1 ended the way that it did, I was honestly scared to death that it was just going to end that way. Because, you know, some of my favorite shows do tend to end at the most inconvenient points. However, with this one, it was just about everything that I wanted and more out of a Green Arrow TV show. From the writing, to the characters, to the world building, even Oliver Queen were all moving closer to their comic book counterparts. And even though Prometheus and Merlin were both really good villains, Deathstroke was by far the best one in the whole show. So overall, when I'm in the mood for a great live-action adaptation of Green Arrow, this is the one that I usually watch, and for that reason and many more is why it is my number 1. So that's all I have for today, nerds and nerdettes, and always remember, you have not failed this city.